Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's NFL time. It is week 9. We got 10 games on the main slate. No Dolphins, no Chiefs, no Chargers. A very interesting slate, I think, is the best way to put it. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday night and hanging out with us live over there on YouTube. Hopefully, you guys hung out for the NBA podcast that we just got done recording. Joined today, as always, on the NFL podcast by my buddy Keith Eys819. Keith, week 9 in the books. It was an okay week. Nothing like great, nothing like terrible. Was on a lot of the right stuff, just not on the right teams together. I usually am like super pumped for like the NFL like slate and show, and it's just like I cannot get excited about this slate. I've done research, I've been wanting to get excited, I just can't do it.
Yeah, it's a rough slate. Last week was the most tilting week of the season for me, I think. I feel like I got so much right, but like you, I just did not put it all together. A.J. Brown was my highest owned wide receiver. Of course, CeeDee Lamb smashed as well. DeAndre Hopkins smashed as well. I like DeAndre Hopkins, just didn't quite have enough. Wasn't really on CD at all, but I had so much A.J. Brown. And the way I used him, because it was tough to fit Hurts and Brown together, I used Sam Howell with A.J. Brown and then had McLaurin or Dotson. I had like 3 or 4 tournament teams that I was like, okay, these have a real shot. I had way too much Isaiah Pacheco. Like, I cannot believe the Chiefs' performance last week. Going into the afternoon games, I thought I was going to crush, but ended up falling out of the cash line in cash games. So lost money there, and then just did not quite get a tournament team home. So overall losing week on a week that I felt like I got an awful lot right. So those weeks are always really frustrating.
Yeah, my like main team that I run in a lot of like single entry and stuff like that, it was okay. It scored, I think, like 169. So like, it's not like I had a bad day. It was a solid team. It had Nico Collins. Like, had he done anything? I was very high on like Purdy. You know, we had talked about Sam Darnold on the podcast last week. I just shifted my Sam Darnold love to Brock Purdy. I was like, I mean, I think that this is a great spot for him. And honestly, they played terrible. The 49ers played awful in that game against the Bengals. Like I paired him with Kittle, so like it was still fine. Like, you know, my pairing was fine. But yeah, I had Terry McLaurin. He was one of my highest owned wide receivers last week. I had a lot of Thielen. He didn't get there. Travis Etienne looked like he wasn't going to get there, and then like did Etienne things, and that was nice.
That 70-yard receiving touchdown was beautiful.
Yeah, and like I was just looking over our morning grind game from last week. I was like, man, I missed the Breece Hall rushing yards, but it's not like it was a bad DFS day for Breece Hall. So they just, I don't know. It was one of those slates, man. Like, got a lot right and just had a couple things wrong, and like the couple things wrong just happened to be on like the Sam Howell builds, and it was just like, all right, whatever, kind of thing. Yeah, but I had a Sam Howell, McLaurin, Dotson, AJ Brown team that was really solid, and it's just like, gosh, like had I had like some different pieces on that team, it would have been a monster day. But that's why we play DFS. It's fun, right? Before we get into breaking down this slate, if for some reason you have been living under a rock, welcome back. We announced a new product here at RotoGrinders this week. It's called SimLabs. We did a special podcast with Chris Romino. Definitely NFL focused for now. We will eventually have it for other sports, but right now it's focused on NFL. It is in the beta. We're still in the beta testing process of it, so it is still free for everyone to check out. We have a channel over on our Discord. I've been messing around with this for over a month now. The team has done a phenomenal job with this. It's a really great tool. And if you don't love spending a lot of time, you know, doing min-max ownership and trying to figure out, I mean, just set your advanced settings to correlation and simulation weight and projections and mess around with the tool and start saving the lineups that you like. And by the time you start saving lineups, you'll find enough to export and mess around with some builds. So
I've been using it a ton on Showdown, and it's just such a time saver for that. Like when you're using the optimizer, you have to build so many rules in to get correlated teams you feel good about in Showdown, but you can just hit run the simulation and bang, you get 20, 50, 150 lineups, however many you're looking to build, all correlated, all look really nice and make sense. So such a time saver on Showdown. Excited to roll out some teams on the main slate with it this week.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I had a team finish, I think, 5th or 6th in the $27 single entry that was produced by SimLab. So like it was really early in like when they let us start testing it in contests and stuff. And it was a really good team. I think it was Lamar Jackson team or something. And it had put me on a running back that I didn't like necessarily have any interest in, and like it kept pumping out that running back, and I was like, I guess I got to play a little bit, and he ended up crushing. So anyway, if you haven't checked out SimLabs, I highly suggest checking it out. A lot of effort by the team in putting this together. If you want to know more about it, there's a ton of stuff up on RotoGrinders for it. And we did a special podcast, like I said, with Chris Jimino here on the Morning Grind feed. And I think it's only like 25 minutes long. It's definitely well worth the listen. What's up, Derek, Dave, Yeezy? Hope you guys are having a great night. All right, Keith, let's get into it. Week 9. By the time we get done with this podcast, I hope I get a little bit more excited than I am right now of this slate, but we'll see if we get there. Rams, Packers, 39.5 total. I don't have the like updated totals in front of me, so bear with me. I'm going off of what opening lines are. I'm pulling it up right now. Green Bay 3-point favorites. We'll start here with the Rams. I think the biggest thing for the Rams is Stafford's hand injury, whether or not like he's going to play or not. He's dealing with a thumb, and I think it's on his throwing hand. Yeah, I don't know what to expect here for the Rams because I really don't want to trust Brett Ripon if Stafford's not able to go. I really don't think we can trust the running game whatsoever right now until Williams comes back from the IR. What are your thoughts here on the Rams?
Yeah, we've hinted at it a couple times off the top already. A lot of these games are really, really ugly. So, there's not going to be a ton of spots that you love. And if you love that spot, probably the field loves that spot as well. It's going to be difficult to get different, I think, on the slate. This Rams team, though, going outdoors into Green Bay, getting cold in Green Bay this time of year, not a spot that I'm loving for them. The Stafford injury is not helping anything. We've seen 2 duds in a row from Cooper Kupp. It's been a long time since healthy Cooper Kupp has put up 2 duds back to back. So I truly think there's some issue with Stafford there. I probably need to see it from this team. I think they're like Kupp and Nakua, I think are super talented, and I believe in what they were doing at the beginning of the season, but without Stafford in the lineup or a banged up Stafford, it's just really uncomfortable to click these guys. The fact that they're outdoors this week, I probably just skip over them at these prices.
Yeah, because even if Stafford plays, I don't think he's 100%.
Right.
That from what they were saying was like UCL, like sprain, and just not a good scene. If you didn't watch the play, Stafford scrambled, looked like he was getting sacked, got out of the sack and threw. And as he threw, he had a helmet and it kind of hinged on his thumb. So it was his throwing hand. And it just wasn't pretty. So, with Stafford, potentially, if Stafford plays, I don't really trust it enough. But I will say, 8,500 for Cooper Kupp. We talked about him when he came back, and we were like, all right, he's 8,600. We probably won't get him this cheap again. He's been over 9K every other slate. If there was ever a week to just say, I'm going to trust the production of a guy that has just produced for us for years now when healthy, I get that. I get that mindset. Green Bay's pass defense is awful. They rank 27th in DVOA against the pass. So, it's a great spot. This defense is very, very beatable. It's just I don't trust if it is Ripon. Maybe Ripon just says, hey, I'm just going to throw the ball 20 times to Cooper Kupp. And maybe he gets there on that aspect too. But, I think if you're playing Cooper Kupp, one, it's to get different on a slate where I feel like it's going to be a pretty chalky slate. And two, you're just hoping for pure volume. You're playing Cooper Kupp for just pure volume this week. So, Puka is dealing with a knee injury. He got tackled weird in that game. So, if Puka sits, maybe all the reason to take a shot on Cooper Kupp and just play him for just, like I said, pure volume in this spot. Packers side, I might be done with this team. I might just officially be done with the Green Bay Packers. We all want it to be Watson. He got 8 targets last week. He just doesn't look the same with Jordan Love throwing the ball compared to what Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. And I hate to say it, it's just how I feel. Aaron Jones is not 100%. We can't trust him at all right now. That's killing AJ Dillon's upside. So unless one of these guys gets ruled out, I don't think you can play the other one. The wide receiver core, flip a coin, and Musgrave, I mean, he's questionable dealing with an ankle where we can't trust his snap count. So, like, just a game that I don't like overall. And I know I'm going to say that a lot on this podcast, so I'm trying not to be negative Nancy, but I'm like over here going, what am I liking? Like, what am I liking here, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like anything on the Green Bay side here either. Completely agree with the running back situation. I want to like Aaron Jones. I think he's the more talented back, but like hamstring injuries for running backs and wide receivers are nothing that I ever mess around with. I did try it, hoping that he was fully healthy coming back the first week, but after seeing him, he's not quite there yet, and he may not get there unless they give him a week or two off here. So if he missed the game, like, I'm still not even excited about AJ Dillon. He's just been really inefficient this season. Doesn't look like he has it as a lead running back. So even at 4,900, I would have trouble getting to AJ Dillon. Jordan Love has looked awful the last couple of weeks, so it's really tough to trust any of his pass catchers either. Like, Watson's going to have a breakout game eventually, I feel like. But at this point, I don't know that we can just continue to chase it week after week with Love at quarterback. I'm not scared of this Rams defense, but there's nothing here. Green Bay's looked awful for a couple weeks in a row. So I'm with you. There's nothing in this game that's appealing.
Yeah, I mean, defenses, maybe we should like the defenses in this game. Maybe like Aaron Donald and these guys get to Jordan Love, and like the Rams defense create some stuff here. So maybe the Rams defense, and like if you pair the Rams defense with like Henderson or Freeman and just try to get the touchdown, and maybe you get a 2-touchdown type of game. But I mean, I don't trust either one. They're splitting carries. I think you can play the Rams defense by themselves. If Ripon plays, I think you could take some shots on the Green Bay defense too. And I know they haven't been great, but I think they probably cheap, right? I haven't even looked at defenses. Yeah, I mean, both these defenses are cheap. So, and I said 39.5. This game has been bet down to 38.5. So already going where it should go. All right, Tampa Bay at Houston, 40 total in this one. Houston a 3-point favorite. Let's start with the Tampa side of this game. It's weird because like Tampa's pass block and their like run block has been really solid this year. So like Mayfield has had time to throw, and when he like makes the throws, like Evans and Godwin have some upside. I think that the Houston defense is a little underrated. We've talked about it a lot recently. I mean, Baker Mayfield, I don't think I take shots, but like 5,200 seems like a really fair price tag going indoors in Houston here. I think that's something else that, is a nice little bump. I think Rashard White is someone you could just play as like a volume running back in this spot, especially on DraftKings where you get the full point PPR. I kind of have interest in Tampa. This might be one of those teams where I don't love it, but I end up playing some of.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that I can certainly get on board with. Of the like 40 and below totals, which there are numerous games in that range on this slate, this is probably my favorite. Going indoors to Houston, like you mentioned, the Houston defense has been okay, but I do think that there's talent on this Tampa Bay team. I'm not saying that I'm stacking up Mayfield, double stacking Mayfield and trying to find a ceiling that way, but there are certainly pieces to like. I have a lot of interest in the Houston side, the other side of this game. So I'm looking for run backs here. I love the Rashad White call. The pass game usage has been back. 7 targets last week, 6 targets the week before that. He's been splitting a little bit in the backfield with Keyshawn Vaughn, and Chase Edmonds is back now. Tucker was out last week. So the rushing share load is kind of tough to nail down. And that's not a great role, but seeing him work in the passing game again to the 6 to 7 target range is I think very playable on DraftKings at 5,600. You can certainly play Evans or Godwin as well. They're expensive. So Rashad White is actually my favorite play on the Tampa Bay side here. Some shots on Trey Palmer for super cheap maybe. But like I said, I'm interested in the Houston side here, and I'm really just using one of these guys as a run back, White being my favorite.
I mean, okay, so my question is like Baker's cheap, White's cheap. Could you go like Baker, White, Godwin, or Evans? Not like all 4, but like could you say like White, Baker, and then potentially take one of Evans and Godwin? I think like the passing role is good enough for White, and he's cheap enough that Baker's cheap enough. Like if you are just saying, hey, I think I'm going to get 3 touchdowns out of this 3 and just try to nail those 3 touchdowns, I think like you could do it, right? And like the good thing about it is like Houston throws, and like we have run back options that are not overly expensive too. It just frees up everything that you want to do with that Dallas Philly game.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea. I feel like I like the Houston side a little bit more, and like it is 1,000 more to get up to Stroud. So I do get your point where you could get exposure to this game and go cheaper at quarterback. Makes sense. Wasn't really considering Baker, but I might take a look at that a little bit closer. I like including because I was thinking Baker, Evans, Godwin is so expensive that you're really not gaining anything there. But if you put White in that stack over one of Evans or Godwin, it does cheapen the stack a little bit. So I can get on board with that, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, like Baker puts up 20 to 25, White puts up 18 to 22, and then like you guess right on Evans or Godwin, you get the right one of those 2 guys, they can put up 20 plus. I mean, getting 60 points out of this stack overall, I think like makes some sense at the pricing. So I wasn't really on this, but the more I think about it, the more I like it. Because I like the Houston side of this game. Tampa is a team where, like, defensively, they haven't been able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. Their pass defense has been so-so. They're allowing 270 passing yards per game, which is the 3rd most in the NFL this season. Like, this is a spot we could see a guy like CJ Stroud just let it loose, and Nico Collins, Tank Dell. I like the double stack here on the Houston side with Stroud. I think this is a spot where another one of those like potential spots that goes overlooked, but I have a ton of interest in the Houston side of here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Flop leg as well. Nico Collins and Tank Dell both got way more popular than I expected them to last week. But it makes sense, right? Houston has been successful in the passing game all season long. They're both still underpriced, I would say. Nico at 5,800, Tank Dell at 5,300, and Robert Woods potentially missing again. Looking, he's doubtful on the injury report, so definitely looking like he's missing again. I don't even hate throwing Dalton Schultz in there if you want to just try to get away from one of the wide receivers. Keeping an eye on the ownership here because you were mentioning about the defense. It's a very clear pass funnel here. Tampa Bay with a great run defense. Vea is coming back as well, who's kind of like their stud run stopper. I feel like the Texans' path to winning this football game is through the air, and the pieces are cheap enough. I'm extremely interested. Hopefully they stay lower owned because they let everyone down last week. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but we'll see what ownership looks like. But I love the Texans side here.
Dameon Pierce is banged up right now. If he were to sit, Devin Singletary is 4,300, and if he gets a full like workload, I think you could potentially take some shots on Devin Singletary if Dameon Pierce ends up sitting in this game. I mean, it's not necessarily my favorite play because I think Tampa is much better at stopping the run than they are at stopping the pass. But I think overall, like if Dameon Pierce sits and we've seen like Devin Singletary is enough focused in this offense where at 4,300, I think you could potentially take shots on Singletary here if Pierce sits. So I think that's the only way you get to Singletary is if Pierce sits and you just play the $4,300 running back here. Moving on, Minnesota at Atlanta. Kirk Cousins, man, hate to see it. A guy like you just want to root for, but he's out for the season. He had successful surgery on today, Wednesday. Minnesota at Atlanta, 37.5. Atlanta, a 4.5 point favorite is what this opened at. 37.5, 4.5 point favorite. Still the same thing. We'll start with the Minnesota side here. I mean, it sounds like Jaren Hall is going to be the guy this week, but I don't know how long that will last. The team traded for Joshua Dobbs. Dobbs is not going away, baby. I can keep playing him. Let's go. But it sounds like Hall will start this week. I think like this is an opportunity for Jaren Hall. If he goes out and he has like a stellar game here, maybe he can at least survive another week as the starter. If he goes out and plays terrible in this game, Dobbs probably starts next week. I mean, I don't see a way around it. I think Addison at 6K is still cheap enough where we maybe just take some shots on the talent, and they're going to design some plays for him. I don't have a ton of interest in Minnesota overall, but I do like this spot for Addison. I think 6K is still priced where you could take some shots on him here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that I want to like because it's another indoor game in the Dome in Atlanta. I have interest in the Atlanta side. It's really hard to trust Jaren Hall at quarterback. I do think that Addison is still in play at 6K. They should scheme him the ball. He should see a bunch of targets. I think Hawkinson is in play as well, and I think I'd slightly prefer Hawkinson. I know he's expensive for the tight end position, but he is one of those guys who can just separate at the tight end position. We could see double-digit targets for him. Young quarterbacks tend to like to lock on to their tight ends. So Hawkinson and Addison are the only interest I have. This running game stinks. Madison has not done anything. Akers is cutting into the role, but hasn't quite fully taken it over yet. So not going to the running backs, not using Jaren Hall and stacks, even though he's cheap, but I don't mind Addison or Hawkinson as run backs here.
I like the Hawkinson call. I didn't really think about like a young quarterback checking down a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense. If KJ Osborne ends up sitting, I think like Powell's banged up too, but if one of these two guys sits, you could play the other one. They're both, I mean, Powell's 3,200. So if Osborne's out 3,200, Powell, I don't think it's the craziest idea. And you want to throw on Atlanta. We've talked about it a lot. They're a very underrated bad pass defense. All right, going to the other side of this game, the Minnesota side. Minnesota has really struggled at getting pressure on the quarterback, and I think that with a young quarterback here and Heineke playing over Ritter, like I think the passing situation opens up a little bit more with Heineke. Call me crazy, but I obviously want to see the news on like Drake London. I really want him to play in this game because I think this is a spot that is a really solid spot. If he's out, Van Jefferson's 3,600, Hollins is 3,500. Pitts is 4,100. Jonnu Smith is 3,400. Like if Drake London doesn't play, I think we're taking some shots here on the Atlanta passing game.
Please let Drake London play because
I know.
I do not want to have to click Van Jefferson.
Oh no.
But okay, so we've seen this from Taylor Heineke before with Washington. Like, dude is a gambler. He will take shots down the field. That is what we want for DFS upside. So this is a massive upgrade to these Atlanta receivers. As far as like DFS upside, I absolutely love this spot for Drake London. If he plays, I love Kyle Pitts. I love Jonnu Smith. Those are the three guys that I want. And I'm going to use a little bit of Taylor Heineke. He's going to make some mistakes. He probably throws an interception or two, but he's going to take shots down the field. And that's something we haven't seen from this Atlanta offense at any point this year or any point last season. They just have not had the quarterback play of guys that are willing to do that. When you have elite talents like Drake London and Kyle Pitts, elite athletes out there, like I'm excited about this Atlanta team with Taylor Heineke. It's honestly, I need London to play because I'm in love with this spot if he does play.
I like Heineke. I kind of skipped over him, but he's 5K. He threw for 175 yards in 2 quarters against Tennessee on Sunday when he came into that game. They opened up the playbook for him, and that's something that we've been wanting them to do for Desmond Ritter, and I don't know if they just don't trust him enough or they're just concerned about like his throwing ability. But like we saw a different Atlanta look in that second half of that game, and I think someone like Bijan is now at 6,100, where it's like, all right, if he gets 5, 6, 7 targets here, it's like, all right, we could see Bijan get there as well. I like Bijan more if Drake London sits, for what it's worth.
I like that
because
call. Yep.
I could see like Heineke, Bijan, Pitts type of builds for me because I think like they're just all so cheap that Atlanta's a double stack. You can run it back with an expensive, and like TJ Hawkinson isn't that expensive either. So I mean, this is a spot where the tight ends are just in a great spot. Just overall, a really good bad game. A really good 37.5 total game. Just keep that in the back of your mind.
Right. But my only concern is that Atlanta, just like Jaren Hall, is not good and Minnesota has trouble keeping up. that would kind of nuke the Atlanta passing game, because we know that Atlanta with a lead is fine just turning around and handing it off to 3 different guys. So I feel like that's how this game fails. Doesn't mean that I want to play Algier or anything, but that I do have slight concern, just to throw a little water on the fire. But this is overall, I love this spot for the Falcons passing attack.
I'm just gonna say one thing really quick. I've been talking about how bad the Atlanta pass defense is all year, and they really haven't been tested. Do you know who tested him for the first time this year? Will Levis. They threw it deep, and DeAndre Hopkins had 3 deep touchdowns. That's how you beat Atlanta. Like, if you want to beat them, use your guys. Use TJ Hawkinson. Use Addison. Like, don't switch anything up and just hope this guy can do a little bit what Kirk Cousins was doing. The more I think about it, the more I might actually take some shots on Jaren Hall this week. I don't want to. But I mean, playing for a chance to, keep his job, and they don't seem like they just want to pound the rock with Madison and Akers. So like maybe at 4,800, he's cheap enough. Addison at 6K, Hawkinson at 5,200. Maybe they're all just cheap enough where it works. I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably do it because I'm weird, but it happens. All right, moving on. We got Washington at New England. Yeah, it's a football game. It's on Sunday. 40.5 total. New England is favorited in this game by 3.5. I don't know why. They are. Anyway, let's talk about this game. Washington side first. New England has been okay against the run. They've struggled against the pass, which kind of fits into Washington's play style. Like, we want Robinson Jr. to be a thing. He's a really good running back from what we've seen in the past. He has talent, but they are just letting Sam Hall throw 50 times a game and perfectly okay with it. And they should have beat Philly last week. They gave that game away. I don't know. We saw some trades too. I don't think the Washington defense is going to be great. They weren't already. Yep. I think Sam Howell's going to have to keep throwing. TJ McLaurin, Dotson, they're still cheap enough. We get Douglas on the other side, who's super cheap, that is going to have some ownership. I could see myself building out some McLaurin and Dotson teams. I don't know if I get to Sam Howell this week, but I mean, the thought process is New England actually scores some points this week, and maybe Sam Howell has to play catch up.
I think that you made a great point there on the Washington defense. They traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat, 2 of their best pass rushers. Their defensive line was the only strength of this defense, and now it's been decimated. So this Washington defense might be really, really bad at this point. That's just crazy. The one guy I know I want to play here on Washington is Terry McLaurin. His role has just been incredible. Slow start to the season. We know he was dealing with turf toe. We've seen that limit wide receivers a ton in the past. Fully healthy now. Double-digit targets again last week. Terry McLaurin is just waiting to go off for one of those monster games, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns type of thing. He is that type of talent. We know Sam Howell will take the chances. So I'm going to be in on McLaurin until that game happens, and possibly for the rest of the season until his price catches up, because the slow start to the season, I believe, was fully just about the injury, and he looks healthy to me now. 5,600 for Terry McLaurin. Love this spot. Good to see Dotson back involved last week as well. Price did come up. He's 5K. So I definitely prefer McLaurin with their pricing that close together, but man, I can take some shots on Dotson as well. I believe in that talent. No interest in the running backs for me. We'll see if I get on Sam Howell. I think quarterback is pretty wide open. You can basically play any quarterback you want if you're not spending up to the 2 elite guys who we'll talk about. Obviously, Dak is a little bit underpriced as well for what he did last week, and we'll get into that as well. Not sure I'll get the Howell, but I do have interest in the receivers here.
Just to give you guys an idea really quick about how much Washington is throwing the ball, the 2 leading wide receivers and routes run on dropbacks this season, Dotson and McLaurin. All of the NFL, Dotson has run 306 routes and McLaurin has run 301. Devontae Smith has run 296. That's the second most, or the third most technically, behind the 2 Washington guys. They're just on the field. They don't come off the field, and they throw the ball a ton. So, yeah, I think we have to keep looking at these guys. And Logan Thomas is dealing with a little bit of a heel injury. Pay attention to that. That could bump up McLaurin and Dotson even more. New England. The problem with Mac Jones this year is he's just getting crushed. I mean, he's just getting crushed. We just got done talking about this might be a spot where Mac Jones actually has some time to throw the football. I mean, I think Stevenson's interesting in this game as like a check down option, especially with like Bourne on the IR now. Devontae Parker is banged up. I mean, Demario Douglas, come on down. You're the next contestant on the New England wide receiver game. He's 4K. Looking at like early projections and like projected ownership and stuff, he's definitely going to get some ownership this week. He's just too cheap. What are your thoughts here on New England?
Yeah, Demario Douglas is the one that definitely jumps out right away. Had a decent role with Kendrick Bourne there already over the last 2 weeks. Now Bourne goes on IR. Douglas should be the guy here. Juju just has not shown that he has anything left.
Caught a wide open touchdown this week.
Yeah. That was his only catch, I believe, right? It was, yeah.
It was.
His only target, in fact. Wow, that's bad.
He was wide open. The Dolphins just totally missed coverage, and Juju was just sitting in the corner like wide open.
Yeah, can't do the Juju thing. I know he's cheap, and there's targets to go around, but it's Douglas over Juju for me. I'll be underweight on Douglas in tournaments too. He's a guy that's going to catch a lot of passes near the line of scrimmage. He could end up with 10 targets in this spot. That would not surprise me. Just I don't think he's getting much down the field is the only problem. So I do worry about the upside a little bit. Maybe he breaks a screen pass or something and he can score from a decent ways out. He's certainly a dynamic guy with the ball in his hands, but I feel like if he's going to get up into that 20% range, I probably end up underweight on that.
I think for me on New England, it's really simple. It's some Douglas, it's some Stevenson. I don't think I play Mac. I think if I was going to play a quarterback in this game, it'd be Howell. Mac Jones is super cheap. I would rather take shots on Heineke. I think Heineke has a higher ceiling than Mac Jones, like in this price range. We've already talked about some cheap quarterbacks, and I mean, there's a couple more that we're going to talk about. Quarterback is a position you could definitely save some money on this week. Arizona at Cleveland. Again, it's a football game, and again, it's happening on Sunday. This game's awful. 37.5. Cleveland a 7.5 point favorite. Arizona. I mean, we don't even know who's playing quarterback yet. I mean, it sounds like it'd be Kyler Murray from like him practicing fully with them trading Dobbs. But I read a report the other day that said like Clayton Tune could play and start. Just man, as much as I like Hollywood Brown, just in general, I don't think this is a spot I can do it. Cleveland has one of the best defenses in the league. I don't like anything here for Arizona.
Yeah, really tough spot here against this Cleveland defense. It would be, it's a tough spot for Arizona as well. Like, do you bring Murray back in this spot at Cleveland as his first game of the season? Or do you throw an untested rookie into the fire against this Cleveland defense? So there's no good option here for Arizona. If Kyler plays, I think you can play a little Hollywood Brown. You can play some Trey McBride for sure. Price came up about 1,000. He's up to 3,700, but man, that dude just crushed last week. A lot of it was in the fourth quarter and garbage time, but he's a super athlete. We knew that. He was very productive in college. So Trey McBride at 3,700. If Kyler's at quarterback, I can definitely get on board with that one.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern is like 14 targets last week. And like getting ownership with like this quarterback corpse. Like we currently have him projected as like the fourth highest owned tight end on the slate. So like if he's going to be a chalky tight end against this defense, I might just say like prove it to me. And I like Trey McBride. We talked about him last week, played him last week against Baltimore. We liked him, and like he ended up being like one of the chalkiest tight ends last week. I don't know. I just nothing really like jumping off the page for me. Like they said Dress School might play. Like who knows? I think this is going to be a situation where like Wednesday night's really tough. But right now, I think Trey McBride would be the guy I would have circled just because of the pure volume. And then like Hollywood Brown just for the pure talent aspect of playing him. But I mean, I have a ton of interest in the Cleveland defense and whoever plays running back for them. Like if Ford is good to go, interest in Ford. If Ford's out, I like Hunt. Like Right now I would prefer Kareem Hunt just because I do think Ford is like really banged up. Kareem Hunt's cheap. I don't love anything else really for Cleveland. I think this is a spot you just play the defense and pair him with the running back.
Yeah, speaking of running backs, we didn't touch on DeMercado at all. He is questionable as well. If Murray plays, I'm not interested because Murray's going to be doing a lot of the running, I think. Maybe not coming off the major surgery. But if Clayton Tune plays, I expect Cleveland to win this game and win this game big, which means there could be a lot of check down opportunities for DeMercado. He's only 4,700. I don't hate that as a run back if you do have some interest in the Cleveland stuff. Just wanted to get him out there as well. But on the Cleveland side, I agree. It's the defense that we're looking at first. They're a smash if it's Clayton Tune at quarterback. It depends on who's playing, obviously. If Ford sits, Hunt's one of my favorite running back plays on the entire slate, 5,500. Saw a decent roll last week. Looked pretty good. So the Hunt-Browns pairing is something I would roll out quite a bit. Don't think I'm attacking the passing game much here. Cooper is fine. And I think you would want Watson at quarterback. Like PJ Walker's looked serviceable, but probably not attacking that. I don't know. It is a spot against the Arizona defense, though, and PJ Walker is really cheap. So need to give that one a little bit more thought, I guess. I don't. Do you have a lean on whether Watson is playing or not? I don't think we've seen really any conviction one way or the other.
I think it's Walker again. I think like if you're Cleveland like coaching staff and like ownership, like why would you bring back Watson for this game? You beat Arizona
Fair
with
point.
PJ Walker. Like I mean,
Yeah.
so I feel like it's gonna be Walker. Yeah. I mean, I do want to point out something really quick. Like they said there was like no setbacks for Ford last week. Ford only played 30% of the snaps last week. Kareem Hunt played 36 and Pierre Strong played 32% in that game. It was a very, very like three-headed monster in that game. Super competitive and close game. So I mean, it is. I really want Ford to get rolled out to like have interest in Hunt and maybe even Strong at 4,400. Like if all three of them are active, I mean, it becomes a much tougher and cloudy situation.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, moving on. That game. Ooh, it's a game. It's happening. Seattle at Baltimore. This game opened at 42.5. It has been bet up to 44.5. This is a game with really positive like DFS line movement. We're starting to see some ownership, follow that line movement. We got Baltimore minus 5.5. We'll start here with the Seattle side. Baltimore defense has been super solid this season. Is there anything here for the Seahawks that you like?
So I think this game is going to be quite popular, and there's two really good defenses. We'll talk about the Seattle side and the trades they've made, and the way the defense has played recently, but I'm struggling with this game. Seattle is also flying across the country to the East Coast for an early game, which is never a good spot. I do like Tyler Lockett, I guess would be my one play here. And he's questionable as well, but expect him to play. I'm not stacking. I'm not using Geno as the stack. Like I'd much rather get Dak in this price range. Yeah, I mean, if Lamar's going to be one of the most popular quarterbacks on this slate, it's really only the two stud quarterbacks. But if I'm using Lamar, I think I'm using Lockett as the run back here. I don't know. Like it's a really tough matchup for Walker. We saw Charbonnet play quite a bit. I do like you can always play Ken Walker. He always has an opportunity to fall in the end zone 2 or 3 times. But at 7K, it's not a spot that I love. Like I said, I'm struggling with this game because Seattle's a team I've targeted a ton this year, but don't like the spot against Baltimore necessarily. It's priced up. I don't know. I'm lukewarm on Seattle at best.
That's kind of where I feel as well. Baltimore is the number 1 DVOA team in the NFL. They rank first in DVOA against the pass. They rank third in fifth in DVOA against the run. I mean, this defense has been sound. Where I get exposure to Seattle is like Lamar stacks. I mean, I played a lot of him last week and he disappointed. Gus Edwards had like a career game. I think he scored 3 touchdowns. Brutal. Yeah, it was rough. No Kelsey on this slate. TJ Hawkinson has a rookie quarterback throwing to him potentially. Dallas Goedert is $2,000 cheaper. He's going to get some ownership here in this like Dallas Philadelphia game that sets up really, really nice. So definitely a slate where it's like, all right, how can I get a little contrarian? Maybe taking shots on like Lamar Andrews instead of like AJ Brown, Hurts kind of build. So I think this is a spot I'll definitely have some Baltimore stacks, and it's just like I almost always run back a stack with somebody else from the other team because I want the game to stay competitive or they trail, kind of thing. So it'd be DK or Lockett. And I really again, the only way I'm getting exposure to this game is just through Baltimore stacks. I will say, if Lockett does end up sitting, you could take some shots here on Smith Jigba at 4,300. Baltimore side.
Like the JSN call.
Yeah, Baltimore side, I mean, it's really simple for me. I don't think that Edwards is going to have a career game again. Seattle defense has been playing better, like you're going to bring up. I mean, it's taking shots on Lamar because he's Lamar Jackson, and it's taking shots on Andrews because he's the number one target in this offense. And Zay Flowers is cheap enough where you could still take some shots, but he's kind of in that price range where, if he's going to continue to get a lot of ownership, you just kind of hope that Lamar runs it in twice and throws one to Andrews kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not down on the Baltimore offense by any means. They burned me last week. I also had a ton of Lamar and Flowers and Andrews last week. Did not work out. I had a couple of Edwards teams, but nothing that made any noise. The Seattle defense, they made a trade for Leonard Williams, who is just a very talented defensive lineman. They got Reek Woolen back over the last couple of weeks, and ever since he's come back, their pass defense has taken massive steps forward. Witherspoon, their top draft pick, has played awesome at the other cornerback spot. This Seattle defense is legitimate now. So I think, if you look at season-long numbers, you can see that Seattle has been torched by the pass for most of the season. I'm not so sure that is the case of what we're looking at in this version of the Seahawks defense. They've been outstanding against the run all season long. So they've been a hard team to run on, and now their pass defense is coming around as well. It is a tough spot for them going west to east for an early game. So maybe they just come in and they're flat and Baltimore just absolutely rolls them in this spot. It would not surprise me. But if the field is going to be on this spot as the highest owned spot of the slate, I probably end up underweight here. I much prefer the Philly Dallas game, which is going to be the other popular game, I think. I certainly want some exposure to Lamar and Andrews and Flowers again. That was the most surprising dud of the week last week for me, is the Flowers pretty much did nothing. I will go back to it a little bit, but I don't see myself getting there as much as the field is going to get there.
Yeah, so on the season, Seattle is allowing 259 passing yards per game. So over the last 3 games, because they had a bye week in week 5. So the last 3 games, Cincinnati, Arizona, Cleveland, I mean, questionable Arizona, Cleveland type of thing. They're only allowing 197 passing yards per game. So a huge drop. Again, it's Cleveland, it's Arizona. Cincinnati is in that group. They really shut down Cincinnati in that game pass-wise. So it's tough to say, but it's definitely trending in that direction. We saw, it was Jared Goff, right? Week 2, we talked about that game. Just absolutely destroy this defense. And week 1, Puka had a monster game. Week 3, I think Thielen had a big game. So it's possible. But now I think it's more possible for a guy like Andrews to win inside the numbers than outside with Flowers. So my main stack on Baltimore would be Lamar, with hoping that, all right, the passing game's struggling a little bit and we get the 12 to 15 rushing attempt Lamar. He just didn't need to do it last week against Arizona. Gus Edwards was just shredding the defense all game. So tilting. Moving on. Chicago, your Bears. The Bears. 41 total in this game.
Anytime you're tendering for a top 5 pick, you've got to go out and spend a second round pick on a pass rusher who's going to be a free agent. But that's for another time. Discussion for another time.
I was like, what are you doing?
I
Like
mean, they better
what?
extend him, or it is just an absolute garbage move. But
Yeah, but why would
I
you
have
extend
confidence
with?
they're going to extend
Why
him.
would they extend him with the Bears unless they're just going to throw a lot of money at him? I don't know. I like you. You don't make that trade if the conversation hasn't happened. I guess.
Seriously, that
I
better be
mean,
the case, or I'm going to be one angry Bears fan.
it wouldn't shock me. All right. Chicago at New Orleans, 41 total. Saints a 8.5 point favorite in this game. New Orleans defense is really solid. You know, we don't talk about them a ton. It's a good defense. I actually have a ton of interest in the defense this week for New Orleans. Fields not playing, already ruled out. I got nothing for Chicago in this game. Maybe some tournament shots on DJ Moore, just on the talent, but I think you can find better options.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the DJ Moore thing. Like, it could get super concentrated around him. Bajan, like, he didn't look awful. He is a competent quarterback. The thing is, they're being so conservative with him. Like, he's not taking any shots downfield. It's all short underneath stuff, which that's where you look at a guy like DJ Moore who could take that screen pass 60 yards to the house or whatever. I think that makes sense, especially when you're adding that in with 6 or 7 really easy catches near the line of scrimmage. I could see DJ Moore paying off. I like the price on Cole Kmet, but man, it's tough to trust this offense to be able to get down to the red zone often enough. You certainly need a touchdown from Cole Kmet, I think.
He could do what he did last week and be fine. What do you have, like 10 catches or something like that? He was captain check down last week.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been their entire offense under Bajan, which at 3,900, you're right. That is an acceptable performance there. If he scores a touchdown, that would be like if he gets 8 catches and scores a touchdown, I don't care how many yards he has. Like that's a smash. So I do have some interest in Komet. You talked me into it.
He's just cheap enough. Again, like no Kelsey. So like I think TJ Hawkinson is very underrated. Like you've sold me on him. Like 5,100 for TJ Hawkinson, even with a young quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm super interested in that. Komet, I like Cole Komet in this spot. I forgot that he had like a big catch day and like he was just check down monster. New Orleans, I mean, at this point, like, has Alvin Kamara like turned back the time like 5 years? Like he looks really good, and like Derek Carr looks good. The Saints look good. Like I mean, 8K. Like Alvin Kamara 3 or 4 weeks ago was like 6,100 when he came back from the suspension, but like he's earned this price tag, and Chicago's defense is awful. I think this is a great spot. Like they have been better against the run, but like Kamara, like he's so dangerous out of the backfield too that like I'm not too concerned about like a run defense. I know Chicago's run defense has actually been super solid, but I just think this is a spot you could take shots on Kamara. I like Olave in this spot, and it pains me to say it, but like I kind of like Derek Carr in this spot.
I'm with you. First, let's start with Kamara because I think he's a top 2 running back on the entire slate. I absolutely love this spot for Kamara. You mentioned the Chicago run defense has been solid, but he's getting there in the passing game as well. We saw that game against New England. In the past, part of the problem with Kamara is like they're not willing to use him as the grinder. It's been Jamal Williams who basically since he's come back, like maybe in a blowout they work in Jamal Williams a little bit more, but they have been willing to hand it off to Kamara 20 times, which is a better role than he's ever had, and he's still getting all of the passing down work as well. So price has come up, but this is an absolutely awesome spot for him. I think he could get it done through the air or just 20 rushing attempts type of thing. So I love the spot for Kamara. I love the receivers in this spot as well. Olave, like, has had a couple of down weeks here recently, but started off the season like he was going to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. I believe that's the level of talent that he's at. We're back at home in the Dome for New Orleans, so it's wheels up for Olave. Saw Shaheed pop off for a big game last week as well.
Who talked about him?
Yes, sir. I'm going right back to that. Like I know it's long touchdown dependent, so it's going to be very hit or miss every week. Like there are going to be weeks where he has 2 DK points or whatever, but when you get that 58-yard touchdown like last week, man, at 4,500, that's really all you need. So I'm going right back to Shaheed. The Chicago Bears secondary is nothing I'm scared of. and we're in the dome as well. So love Shaheed and that price tag. Love the chances that he can get behind this Bears secondary.
Yeah, I mean, you just play him for the long touchdowns. So it's the exact thing that we talked about last week, and he almost had 2 of them.
He did.
Like, so it's like, yeah, I think that Shaheed at 4,500, you're just playing him for those ceiling games. I mean, it's going to happen probably like 1 out of every like 3 or 4 games. Like, and this is a spot where this defense is bad against the pass, and Derek Carr will air the ball out. I mean, Derek Carr, like, he gets a ton of crap, but like he's thrown for over 300 yards in 3 straight games, and it's not like he's done it against bad opponents. So I like Derek Carr. I like Olave. I don't expect Taysom Hill to get 2 rushing touchdowns again this week. I hope not anyway. I like the Saints. I think that they're one of my favorite teams on the slate. You're just hoping Chicago keeps up. But we've also seen in the past that like the Saints are a team that will keep the gas pedal down until they get up by like that 3 or 4 touchdown mark. So I like the Saints. All right, we got the Colts and the Panthers. 44.5 total in this one. Colts 2.5 point favorite. Probably my favorite game of the weekend. And it pains me, and I know like I don't want it to be, but I feel like it has the potential to be the best pivot off of the Cowboys-Eagles. The Cowboys-Eagles game is going to have a ton of ownership. It's the best game on the slate. There's no arguing it. It's a phenomenal game. There's so many underpriced pieces in that game. We'll talk about it in a minute. I hate it, but I like it. I like Minshew. I like Pittman. I like Downs. I like Jonathan Taylor a ton this week. Like, I know they're still splitting the role, but like Jonathan Taylor looks really good. And I don't know if it's just like not doing the 3 down, like running back role and being a lot more fresher. But I mean, the Saints defense is no joke. And this dude looked great in that game. I like the Colts.
I love the Colts. Carolina's defense has been awful. They've allowed the most rushing yards in the NFL per game this season. Jonathan Taylor, the reason I said Kamara was a top 2 back is because Jonathan Taylor is the best running back on the slate. He was trending in the first half like he was going to take over the role, and then the run out all went to Zach Moss. I don't know.
Well, they got behind, I feel like, and they used Moss more as like a pass blocker. It was really weird.
It was really weird. Like I think he received 1 or 2 carries in the entire second half, and maybe the game just got away from him. It was the trailing game script, and they were easing Taylor back in a little bit, but it looked like Taylor was starting to take over the backfield. I'm going to just kind of lean into that a little bit and assume that this is like a 60-40 share now in favor of Jonathan Taylor. And if that's the case, Jonathan Taylor is $2,000 underpriced in the best matchup in the entire league. Like, this is an awesome spot for Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be my highest owned player for sure. Early ownership looks awesome on him. He wasn't even like top 2 or 3 or 4. I don't think. He's going to be my highest owned player on the slate. That said, I do have some interest in the passing game as well. The role for Josh Downs is incredible. The price tag is continuing to rise, but I'm interested at 5,200. I like the Minshew call as well at 5,200. Like, he's a very capable quarterback. I don't even hate using Taylor in a Minshew stack. He's receiving enough pass game work, and I like him enough where I am fine rolling that out together. And then Pittman is obviously in play as well, but I would prefer Downs just to save a little bit of money. Jonathan Taylor, my favorite play on the entire slate, though.
Yeah, you talked about like the Carolina defense. They're just atrocious, man. 32nd in DVOA. They rank 32nd in run defense on Pro Football Focus grades. Like, their defense can't stop the run. Taylor worries me for like Minshew upside. So I don't know like if I would play too much Minshew if I'm playing Taylor, because like I'm trying to play Minshew to get that like 25 plus point game, and I feel like if Taylor goes off, Minshew's not going to have to throw as much. Dude, Pittman he might be the best wide receiver under 7K in the league. Like, if he could just get some touchdowns and convert to some more like longer plays downfield, like, he's getting the volume. Downs is getting the volume. Like, this offense DFS wise looks great with Minshew behind the center there. So yeah, I like the spot, and I don't think you sleep on Bryce Young on the other side of this game. This is a spot where the Colts defense, we've talked about it so many times this year, they're a pass funnel. You don't run on this defense. I mean, they have been a little bit more subject to the run this year, but like, let's be honest, Hubbard and Sanders, not great. They're having terrible years. I think this is a spot we go back to the well on Thielen. Last week he had 11 targets. He just didn't score a touchdown. They had 2 red zone design plays for him. One was a bad throw, and one, I hate to say it, he probably should have caught it. So, I mean,
the one over the middle where he did like it was like a curl route almost, like he just kind of turned around and the ball was right on him and he dropped it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a quick
it was between 2 defenders. Yeah. It was a tough play, but yeah, if he would have caught that one, that would have been real nice.
I mean, double-digit targets in 4 or 5 games. And like now, like he's 7,500. Like now people are playing him even less than they have been. So I'm going to keep riding it. And like, I'm playing the volume. I mean, this is Cooper Kupp like volume, and like he's projected for 5% ownership early in the week here. So I'm gonna keep doing it. Like, why shouldn't I? Like, he's getting red zone targets. He scored a touchdown in 4 of 6 games that he's played, 4 of the last 6 games, and double-digit targets in 4 of the last 5. I mean, like, you play it. I mean, again, like, just play it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that the price keeps climbing, because Derek in chat saying Thielen 7,500, oof. But that's exactly how the entire
I agree with you. I agree. Oof. But I mean, you're also like, you get excited, right? Like you get excited because he's not going to have any ownership.
Yeah, and we're talking about legitimate 30-point upside. I'm not talking he hit 30 points once. He's done it 3 times in the last 5 weeks. Like 30 points is his upside. That's perfectly acceptable for 7,500. Double-digit targets. He's been scoring a lot. You could argue that he's ran super hot with touchdowns. That's fine. But the role at worst is Michael Pittman, who is not that much cheaper. And I feel like he gets more downfield targets. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I feel like Thielen gets more downfield targets than Pittman. He's priced maybe appropriately now, but he still has one of the best roles in the NFL. I feel like Indy is going to be playing from ahead in this game. And Thielen's going to get double-digit targets again. So fire him up at 7,500. I'm totally good with that. I do have a question for you about the running backs. We saw Chuba Hubbard take over the backfield.
They said it too before the game. They did say like they were going to do it.
So you believe that that's actually a shift now, and that it wasn't because Miles Sanders was banged up? He did have the questionable tag coming into the game all week, but I feel like if you're going to give him 2 opportunities the entire game, why wouldn't you just sit him? So I feel like he was healthy, and Chuba Hubbard just actually took over the backfield.
I think it was Hubbard taking over the backfield. And like, had we not got the report saying like it's Hubbard's backfield like before the game, I feel like, and then we would have saw it, then we would have been like, all right, well, why did Sanders play? Maybe he re-injured himself. But the fact that they said it was going to be Hubbard's backfield, and like they didn't lie, he was out there a ton.
Yeah, I mean, at 5K, I know like he has not been efficient, but like if they're playing from behind, like I kind of see this game going, and it's a close spread, and we'll talk about that later in the show as well. But I feel like Chuba Hubbard could be in line for a decent amount of receiving work. I know he hasn't really gotten all that much of it here recently, and Blackshear did work in a little bit, but I don't know. I feel like Hubbard could be the pass catcher here in this spot.
Really quick, do you know, just throwing this out there for everyone, because we had some people in chat give me crap about Adam Thielen, and good, give me crap. I love it. He has scored the 8th most fantasy points among wide receivers this year, more than St. Brown, more than Travis Kelce, more than CeeDee Lamb, more than Pittman, more than Devontae Adams, more than Mike Evans, more than Devontae Adams, more than Sam Laporta.
For those guys.
Yeah, so I mean, like he can't like compare him to like Justin Jefferson because of Justin Jefferson getting hurt, but like he is above St. Brown. We pay 7,500 for St. Brown every week. So just saying, Adam Thielen, like he scored 44% of the team touchdowns this season for Carolina. Like that is a very high percentage, like one of the highest percentage among wide receivers that plays a lot. So just get backing up my Adam Thielen love. I know this has turned into the Adam Thielen love podcast, but I mean, if he doesn't drop the touchdown last week, again, we're like sitting here going, why aren't people playing him? I mean, like he's going to be even lower owned this week. Just stats don't lie. Ball got ball. Let's go. All right. Last 2 games. We got okay. So the afternoon slate, pretty good, right? We got this game with Carolina. We got Philadelphia. Like this game right here. Giants and Raiders. Whew. All right. This game has I'm going to check really quick. 37.5. Raiders are 1.5 point favorite. McDaniels dresses up as Al Davis gets fired. What is going on? Man, did you hear that story too? Like, so he dressed up as Al Davis. I'm saying it is Al Davis, right? Right, Al Davis. And Al Davis sent McDaniels his favorite like lunch spot, and in the fortune cookie was a fortune that said you're fired. I don't know if this is real. Like, so the Athletic reported this. I don't know if it's real. I mean, I've read it a couple different places, but like, if this is a real story, wild. If you're Josh McDaniels, you call Bill Belichick and be like, "Hey, let me come call plays for you." I don't know.
That's the only thing he's been good at is that role in his NFL.
Not everybody's meant to be a head coach.
I
mean, hate to say it, but I know it wasn't real. Josh, come on. All right, Giants here. I mean, we have no idea. It sounds like Daniel Jones is going to play. I don't really have a ton of interest in the passing game here. Waller's banged up. I mean, we want Wan'Dale Robinson to be a thing. He's cheap. The only guy that I honestly have a ton of interest in him is Saquon Barkley. He's under 8K. He ran 36 times last week. He had 5 targets. It's just pure volume for Saquon Barkley. I mean, if he's good to go, it sounds like the ankle injury is just kind of maintaining the ankle sprain that he had a few weeks ago. Saquon Barkley running 36 times last week tells me everything I need to know about his role.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect 36 carries again. That was a Tommy DeVito special, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't come off the field. Like, it doesn't matter who they're playing, you know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's an amazing role. It's a good spot against a bad Las Vegas defense. But the 36 carries was because they were just terrified to let Tommy DeVito throw the football. If we get Jones back, he's probably going to be back down in that low 20s area, but that's still a fantastic role when you factor in his passing game work as well. If Jones doesn't make it back for this game and it's DeVito again, then you could see 30-plus carries. And Barkley would jump to the top running back on the slate for me. But sounds like Jones is going to make it back. He practiced in full Wednesday. So unless it's an abundance of caution because they're not playing for anything, I feel like it's Daniel Jones. I do still like Saquon, though. Just the role is undeniable. I like the spot against Las Vegas. Game script proof guy. He's going to catch a bunch of passes if they're trailing. If they can play from ahead, then good for them. I don't have a ton of interest in Daniel Jones' first game back off of the neck injury. Just don't trust the wide receivers. If Waller were healthier, I could get on board with that. But like, I don't like playing Wan'Dale because I don't believe in the ceiling. Slayton is so hit or miss. Like, I'll sprinkle in Slayton a little bit in case he catches the long one, but we really haven't seen it out of him. So not a ton of interest in Giants outside of Saquon.
Yeah, and like, so Saquon's only played 1 week this year with Daniel Jones. I mean, like, the Giants made a run last year, and a lot of it had to do with like Daniel Jones playing well. And like, the game that they played together was the Arizona game that they put up 31 points. Saquon had 27 fantasy points in that game. He had 7 targets, 6 catches. It was in Arizona. Like, I get it. Big difference. But it's not like the Raiders pass defense is great. And I mean, they are ranked 29th in DVOA against the run. They're allowing 140 rushing yards per game, which is the 3rd most in the NFL. So like, I think this spot is really, really good for Saquon Barkley. Giants defense, I think, is in play. I really do think you could take some shots on the Giants defense. They're 2,300. We're always looking for like that punt defense. They have double-digit fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games, and one of those games was against the Dolphins. So I think the Giants' defense is like a punt defense. I think they're like kind of priced way too far down. And like Yeezy just said it in chat as well. I think the defense pulled punt. Yeah. So, all right, Raiders. Hey, Garoppolo's good, but he's not starting. O'Connell's gonna get a start here, and I mean, if you're Devontae Adams, you have to be going, throw me the football 30 times a game. I mean, yeah. I was expecting him to get traded. I'm not going to lie. I really thought that like Devontae Adams was going to get traded. on the trade deadline on Tuesday, not getting traded. I feel like we have a little bit of sample size to go back and look at week 4 for O'Connell when he started. Devontae Adams in that game had 13 targets, is one of his best target games of the season. What are we doing with the Raiders? And one of the reasons I like the Giants defense is because like just the Raiders offense just projects to be terrible.
Yeah, Jimmy had maybe the worst game of his career last week, so I'm not surprised that he got benched.
Detroit defense is solid, though. I mean,
it is, but he missed Devontae wide open.
I know.
Wide open. Like walk-in touchdown, 50-yard plus type wide open touchdowns. Yeah. It was a brutal game for Jimmy Garoppolo. Threw one up to Devontae into double coverage that was an easy pick. Like he played awful last week. Aiden O'Connell cannot play worse than that. So I don't know. I feel like this is an upgrade compared to the way that Jimmy's been playing. I like Adams in this spot. The Giants defense is just, I know they've scored well, but I feel like they've been a better fantasy defense than an actual defense. We talked about the Leonard Williams trade as well. So I'm not scared. I think O'Connell is fairly talented and can have some success in this spot. Jacoby Myers with 0 targets end up getting 1 target, but I think like through 3.5 quarters, he had 0 targets in that game last week. Just a brutal performance from Vegas last week. I think people are going to be down on him this week though, because, and that's going to like, it's a condensed offense. We know where it's going. It's going to Devontae, it's going to Myers, and Josh Jacobs is going to have a massive role. So I want those 3 guys. That probably means that I'm playing a little Aiden O'Connell as well. And Michael Mayer is a guy I've talked about for a couple of weeks. I believe in this talent. He's breaking out eventually. He's not seeing the field a ton. Austin Hooper's still out there, but just a couple, I feel like there's just the new regime is taking over. We could see a different role for Michael Mayer here. I hope he stays low owned. I think he's an awesome pivot at just 2,800 this week. I'm actually into this Vegas offense quite a bit.
Really quick, when I was doing my research for the week, I went back and looked at when O'Connell was announced as the starter. I went back and I looked at some of that Chargers game. Josh Jacobs had 11 targets, so he was checking down a ton to Josh Jacobs. So I think Josh Jacobs is a sneaky good play this week.
I love that call. I love his price, 6,900 for Jacobs. That's the lowest we've seen him in a couple of years, right?
And the Giants run defense is not good. I mean, they're 27th in DVOA against the run. So Jacobs could have a 75-50 game with 5 to 7 catches. And if he scores a touchdown, this is a game he could put up 30 plus fantasy points at 6,900. So just something that I noticed in my research, if you're not taking shots on Adams or O'Connell, maybe you're just taking some shots on Josh Jacobs.
Love that call.
All right, let's talk about it. Dallas at Philadelphia, game of the week as far as the main slate is concerned. 46 total in this one. Eagles a 3-point favorite. People are getting super excited about this game, Keith, and I don't have the cojones to do it, but I really want to fade this game. This is 2 really good defenses, really good defenses. Philadelphia, really sound defense. Dallas, really sound defense. 2 really good offenses as well. Let's start with the Dallas side. Dak Prescott coming off of finally starting to see Dak do Dak things. He looked really good last week, 4 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb getting involved finally again. We're starting to see CeeDee Lamb 21 targets over the last 2 games. Man, gosh, I hate this spot. I like Lamb. I like Lamb. I do. I am off of Tony Pollard, so he's probably going to score 3 times in this game. You got to beat Philly through the air. I like Lamb. I think in large field tournaments, I think you can like some Brandon Cooks in this game. Gallup is banged up. And then I think Jake Ferguson is in play in tournaments as well. Obviously, we would pair some Dak here. I think this is a spot you have to like the passing game. I don't think you play Pollard this week.
Man, we are on the exact same page. The Dak CD stack was the one thing I didn't have much of at all last week that ended up.
I had no Dak last week. I mean, that's one of my downfalls last week.
He was cheap, but we hadn't seen the ceiling from him in so long. I'm like, how is Dak Prescott going to burn me? Well, it turns out he's just going to start targeting CeeDee Lamb a ton, and that's what he should be doing because CeeDee Lamb is awesome. So yeah, I think you have to go right back to it in this spot. The Philly pass defense is not something I'm afraid of. The rush defense is what I'm afraid of. And I'm here to tell you, I don't think Tony Pollard is good anymore. We talked about him as a solid play on the podcast last week. By Sunday, I was almost a complete fade on Tony Pollard because I was digging into some of his stuff. His explosive plays are gone. His explosive play rate was like 8.8% last year. This year, it's down to like 3.1%. And that was per fantasypoints.com. It's 15 plus yards as is qualified as an explosive play. We're just not seeing the explosion from Tony Pollard. Now he gets a brutal matchup here against Philly. I think he's going to be popular again because the price continues to come down. I'm not playing Tony Pollard, and he could burn me in the passing game. There's no doubt about that. But I feel like either he can't handle the full workload of being the lead back, or he has the injury that he suffered and then had surgery for in the offseason has kind of just taken away his burst. And it doesn't take much for you to lose like that. Like being that elite athlete, you can lose that in a hurry in an NFL league that is just full of elite athletes. So I'm off Tony Pollard. It's not just the matchup. I don't think he's the same player that we were all excited about finally getting this role. The Dak CD stuff, it's really hard to get away from that. They looked incredible last week. I love the Jake Ferguson call as well. He's had a really solid role at tight end. Philly has been susceptible to tight ends as well. So love your Ferguson call. Cooks is fine. I can't get on Gallup even if he's in there. Just haven't seen much from him ever since his injury either. So we'll have to see where the ownership comes in. But Dak CD is my favorite spot of the game. Love Ferguson as a way to maybe get away from CD stuff.
Yeah, I think like the reason I have interest in Cooks is like Philadelphia is a team that gives up the long ball.
Yep.
You know, we've seen it so many times now. Like you can't really like classify them in the same class as like Miami. You can't put anybody with that type of speed. But we saw, you know, Dotson get away and have a big game. The Rams, when they played Philadelphia, we saw big games there from Puka and I think it was Cooper Kupp, right? Like he had a big game there. So. And like even in week 4, Washington. So like Philly's defense, they have been solid, but they have been a lot worse against the pass this year than they have in years past. So I do like this spot for Dak in the passing game, but I think Cooks has that like 40, 50 yard touchdown potential. And you just, at that point, you're just hoping he gets a few extra catches on top of that, or another touchdown, deep touchdown. It'd be great. Like, I think if Cooks gets 2 touchdowns, CD probably still has enough upside because I think CD is going to be like the target monster in this game.
Yeah.
Philly side, first thing I want to start here with is I don't think Jalen Hurts is 100%. Like, we saw him get hurt in the Miami game. I think it was like a knee. Pretty sure it was a knee. And like he's looked great throwing the ball, but we only 4 rushing attempts last week, and a lot of that was the shuffle type play. And I mean, he had to throw the ball more. They looked fantastic. I think it helps the pieces around him more. Like guys like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Goddard. Man, the running back situation has finally got to the point where I'm like, DeAndre Swift has to score a touchdown, but now like Gainwell is getting involved again. They're using Scott at the backfield as well. Like Gainwell's getting like the passing work. The running back situation is getting tough for me. Everyone is going to force A.J. Brown, and I get it. I think this is a great spot to pivot to Devontae Smith in tournaments. I worry about Hurts' ceiling, and I know, Stevie, he 31 points last week, and he didn't run. I hear you all. I hear what you're saying. He threw 4 touchdowns. Washington defense is not the Dallas defense. I'm here to tell you that. So I think this is a grinded out type of game. Like, this isn't a 53 total. Like, this is a game that's 46. It's a grinded out game. I want to fade Hurts. I want to play some Smith. I love A.J. Brown, obviously. But I think A.J. Brown is not as good a play this week as people are going to put him as. I get it. It's a gut feeling, Keith. It's a gutty. He's a beast. You know, he was one of our favorite plays last week. We talked about him a ton last week. He crushed. He had 8 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. What he has like a record going of like 125 plus yards and like 6 straight games or something.
6 straight games. Yep.
like they're gonna keep trying to feed that. But like if you're the Dallas defense, you're like, we're not letting this guy get 125 this week. So I think Devontae is an excellent tournament pivot. I think Goddard's a really interesting tournament pivot. I think AJ Brown has the highest opportunity to score the most fantasy points, but I think there's tournament options here.
I hear you, but this is an awesome spot for AJ Brown. Like this game should be back and forth. I think Dallas can keep up here, which is what we always need from this Philly offense. Is anytime Philly is getting pushed, like Washington pushed them last week, we have seen this offense just go nuclear. Jalen Hurts did not score a rushing touchdown last week. He generally does score a rushing touchdown. So he got those 31 points without the rushing touchdown. Maybe he doesn't throw for 4 here, but I think there's a high probability that he can run one in or get pushed into the end zone on one. Like if it's Lamar or Hurts for me, I don't think it's that close. It's Hurts. Maybe that's bias from last week that I need to get over by Sunday and figure that out. But I feel like Lamar's going to have just as much ownership as Hurts. They're basically the same price. They're both in decent enough spots, but I know this is the highest owned spot of the week, but I'm having a very hard time with the AJ Brown fade. If you've got the stones to do it, congrats to you, but and I hope it works out. But I'm going to be playing some AJ Brown. The role's been incredible. I like, don't get me wrong, I'll have some Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert as well, but it's AJ that I'm going to be jamming in there. Like we haven't seen a role like this in quite some time. Like, and just the explosive plays. I don't know. He's a really tough fade at this spot. If he was 9,600, I'm on board. It's a lot easier to fade him at that price. He's still too cheap at 8,600 for what he's been doing recently.
Yeah, and listen, I hear it. It's tough to even look at like last year because like I know Cooper Rush played one of the games, and like Gardner Minshew played the game against Dallas in the late, like the December game last year, and like it still was like a 74-point game. Philly was resting some people in that game, so it's tough. I mean, to look at even at last year's, but I'm looking at this year, and I'm looking at like Dallas has allowed the second fewest, fantasy points per game to wide receivers. This defense is really good. I mean, like DVOA, they're third in DVOA, and they're third in DVOA against the pass. They are one of the best teams at getting at the quarterback. They're third in Pro Football Focus like grades for like getting to the quarterback pressure wise. So
look at their schedule real quick.
That's my only listen. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Like, and I get like you just think Cooper Kupp last week and just how much they beat up on Cooper Kupp. And I get it. Stafford didn't play the second half of that game, but like Dallas dominated Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp in the first half of that game. So I don't know. I just struggle. And I hear what you're saying, but like Chargers, Keenan Allen's a very good comp to like Herbert, and Keenan Allen comping to AJ Brown and Herbert and Hurts. And like they shut him down in week 6. So like, San Francisco and
Stafford and Herbert are both playing with hand injuries, though.
Get out of here. I'm trying to counter your point. I get who they played the first 4 weeks, but they've played San Francisco. They only allowed 10 points to San Francisco. They allowed 20 points to the Chargers. Or no, San Francisco crushed them, right? I'm reading it backwards. I don't know. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah, San Francisco rolled.
I just want to fade him, okay? I'm not going to, but I want to.
I'm not arguing. The Dallas defense is talented. I'm not arguing that, but they have had an extremely soft schedule. I get it. It's going to be chalk on this slate.
I would play some Dallas defense if they enticed us at like 2,500. That's where I'm at. Like I would take some shots on the Dallas because again, I don't. Okay, so like back to like the original thing that I said about Philadelphia in this game. I do not think Jalen Hurts is 100%. I don't think he's 100%. So, like, that is motivation into if this team is able to get to Jalen Hurts a lot, how is this game going to play out if Jalen Hurts can't scramble? Like, the knee, like, he's limping around the field the last 2 weeks. Like, I don't know. Like Washington, I agree.
The rushing
upside,
the rushing yards upside is limited, but the rushing touchdown upside is still there.
Well, yeah. I mean, he gets inside the 2 and they just run 4 push shoves, whatever the heck, tush push. I like it. Easy called it a tush push. There you go. They call it a brotherly shove or whatever. We did see finally we saw Philadelphia, and why against Washington do you
Would you
show
that?
your hand?
Yeah,
Like you're playing Dallas. You're playing Dallas the next week. Like they showed the option, and maybe now Dallas comes in this game like, oh, we got to defend this. Maybe that's why they did it, and it works even more. Who knows? But yeah, it reminded me of the jump pass, Tim Tebow jump pass.
Yeah.
All right. All in all, this game has a ton of potential. This game has the potential to go 70 plus points, just straight shootout. Good defenses get blown up by better offenses type of game. So game stackable, very much so. Take some shots on Lamb, take some shots on AJ, take some shots on Devontae Smith. I just overall, yeah, I want to be different on the slate. And I'm looking at Wednesday projected ownership, and this game has a ton of ownership, and I get why. It's just
fade Tony Pollard. We're on board with that.
Oh, I am on board with that. I don't have any interest in that. We didn't bring up Julio Jones. He only had a couple targets, but he did score a touchdown. That's not something we should be talking about yet, right? At 3,300?
I don't think so. No. Yeah, I'd have to look at his 2 targets. I don't think he's out there enough to worry about it.
No, he's on a pitch count. I just don't we have to pay attention to if the pitch count gets lifted.
Yeah.
And you sign a guy like Julio Jones just to go out there on passing downs anyway. So
right.
And for the playoff upside. All right, let's play the morning grind game. Hey, we bounced back last week. We had a pretty solid week. So it was good of us. The week before wasn't great.
Not so good.
I will note that going through this slate, I still only have 7 running backs on my sheet. I didn't add a single running back throughout the sheet. So I'm gonna have a very tight running back core this week. That is what I've noticed. I can't narrow down my quarterbacks, but I narrowed down my running backs this week. All right, all that to give myself time to pull up lineup HQ really quick. Quarterback for 300 passing yards. Who do you got?
I'm going to go. He's going to be chalky. He did it last week. Dak Prescott, it's just the only way that Dallas can move the football against his Philly defense is by throwing it, and by throwing it deep. I feel like Dak has another big game here.
Yeezy asked us to touch on tomorrow's showdown. Don't play it. I did it for you. Or you know what I'm going to do for tomorrow's showdown? I'm just going to use the Sim Labs because I think that game is awful. It is so bad. That game is awful. It's atrocious. DeAndre Swift is not on my list, Eric. All right. My quarterback this week, I am going to go to my boy with the stash, and that's my boy Minshew to go for 300 plus yards this week. I hope this game shoots out so much. I hope that game shoots out. Low-owned running back for a touchdown. Again, it is Wednesday night. Ownership will shift. Who do you got this week for a low-owned touchdown?
I don't love this as a DFS play. The price is up there, but just the way that Seattle plays offense, they're going to give Walker opportunities down at the goal line. He could get 2 touchdowns in this spot, even though I think it's a really difficult spot against Baltimore. I might end up on him by Sunday, but 7K against Baltimore is a tough ask, but I do think he gets in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, running back ownership, very concentrated on some people. I really hope Tony Pollard comes in at 17%. DeMarcado comes in at 17%. Sign me up for both of those fades. If DeMarcado is going to be chalky, I'm out. So I looked at this earlier and I couldn't find anybody. I'm looking at it now. I didn't add any running backs. I hate this question this week.
Swift was the only one I was even considering.
Yeah, give me Singletary.
It's really tough. Yeah, I like that, especially if Pierce misses. But that probably means he gets a little bit more popular. But
he does. But right now, Wednesday, he's projected for 5%. So if Pierce sits, you heard it first here. quarterback, wide receiver for a touchdown this week. Who do you got?
I mean, Hurts to AJ Brown. Come on. Worked for us last week. I'm going right back to it. You talked about Hurts being limited rushing. He's going to be dropping back a ton. I don't think the Dallas secondary is all that scary with Diggs out. Their pass rush is insanely scary, but the Eagles have the best offensive line in the league. So I feel like they can protect Hurts enough. He can get the ball out. I don't know. This is a tough fade for me, so I'm leaning into Hurts to AJ chalk.
I like it. I'm gonna go Derek Carr, Chris Olave. Chicago pass defense, man. Got to keep targeting it. I think this is a good spot for Carr and Olave. Wide receiver for 8+ targets. Who do you got?
It's our guy, Adam Thielen. Lock it in.
Yeah, I always write down 2 now because like Keith has joined the dark side. He's on this podcast has turned into the Adam Thielen love podcast. I hope you guys know
sure
that.
has, but it hasn't filled us yet. So I mean, last week he was okay, but it's not like he burned you. He put up 16 at 6,500, 6,600. He wasn't a complete bomb like guys like Pacheco and whatnot were.
So I originally had Drake London written down here. That was before like he missed practice Wednesday. And like the groin injury definitely has me concerned a little bit. I'm gonna go with McLaurin as my 8+ target guy. If London is good to go, I really like Drake London this week. Tight end for a touchdown, not named TJ Hawkinson or Mark Andrews.
Jake Ferguson. I think that's what, if I'm playing that game different and I am trying to fade CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson is the first guy I'm looking at.
I like it. I'm going to go to my boy, University of Florida, Gator chomping all the way to the end zone. Give me Kyle Pitts.
Love this spot.
I really think Heineken is a better quarterback for Kyle Pitts.
No doubt.
I think this could be a big week for him. A lot of ownership on Mark Andrews, a lot more than I kind of expected here early in the week. David Njoku getting a lot of projected ownership here on a Wednesday. I didn't even have him on my list. I don't hate that against Arizona, but I worry about that game environment. Defense, 10+ points. Who do you got?
I'm going to go Patriots in this spot. I don't think they're a great defense, but Washington just takes so many. Howell takes so many sacks. He turns the ball over. I've been playing defense. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like you want your defense facing a team that's going to throw a ton, and that is exactly what Washington does. And then they take sacks and give away turnovers as well. So I'm playing I don't care how bad the defense is against Washington. I'll play them every week.
Yeah, you can have a defense score double digits. At the end of the day, that's kind of what you're hoping for, and still give up 30 points. I mean, that's just how defenses work in DFS, and like that's why we don't talk a ton about defense. Honestly, for me, when it comes to defense, it's just whoever fits. I know for a fact, though, this week I'm going to be using a lot of the Giants defense. So I'm hoping they get over 10. Just 2,300 for a defense against this Raiders team just seems really cheap. They have 10 sacks over the last 2 games. I think this is a spot, young quarterback. They're going to get after O'Connell here. So really like the Giants defense. It's just way too cheap. All right, let's go to the betting portion of the show here. We had a good betting week last week, too. I was looking at it before we got rolling. Good betting week. Yeah, I thought I was going to get the Cleveland money line bet, and it didn't happen.
If Mahomes wouldn't have had the flu, I think I would have swapped 4-0. But missed Kelsey receiving yards, but hit the other 3.
Taylor Swift wasn't at the game. You should have known.
Yeah, that's right. That was the problem.
She probably won't be at the game this week either. They're being over. They're playing was it Germany or something, right?
Germany. Yep.
Yeah. I'm excited. I get to wake up Sunday morning and watch Dolphins play while building championship NASCAR lineups and football lineups. All right, against the spread or money line bet this week. What do you got?
Give me Colts -2.5 going to Carolina. The Colts are a lot better team. Carolina is atrocious. They got the win last week, but I think the Colts are a lot better. Jonathan Taylor getting healthy, Minshew playing competent quarterback. I like the Colts in this spot a lot.
Yeah, I like it. I am going to go to an underdog money line again. These have worked for me this year. I'm going to go Giants money line over the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that Daniel Jones being back, Saquon Barkley, the Giants defense, I don't trust O'Connell to get the ball out. So I'm going to go Giants money line here. I'm not even going to take the 1.5. Who was my pick to win the Cup championship? I'm really rooting for William Byron. So when we were in Nashville in February for the Super Bowl, I have 2 William Byron 16-1 tickets. So I am rooting for him. I got Blaney at 12-1. So I'm rooting for those 2 guys. And I would really prefer one of those 2 guys to win championship. As a fan, I really like to see Byron. I've been very high on him this year since the beginning of the year, and he's made me a lot of money. So rooting for William Byron to win championship this year. I would be really pumped for Ryan Blaney, and I'd be really pumped for Christopher Bell, and I'd be really pumped for Kyle Larson. I like all 4 drivers that are in the championship this year. All right, over-under bet. What do you got this week?
Tampa Bay, Houston over 40.
Yes.
Just competent quarterback play on both sides there. Love what CJ Stroud has been doing for Houston. Baker Mayfield's been playing okay for Tampa Bay. Clear pass funnel on the Tampa Bay side. So Houston should have to throw quite a bit. Should speed this game up as long as CJ Stroud continues to play well. Now that he's got Nico Collins and Tank Dell, I'm just writing last week off as an anomaly, basically. I trust this Houston offense, and I trust Tampa Bay to kind of keep up a little bit as well. 40 seems too low for that game in the Dome.
I wrote this down when this line was 42.5. I still like it. Give me Carolina and the Colts over 44.5. I like this game. This is the game I have circled as a make or break game for me this weekend. I really like this game. I like the Tampa game a lot as well. That was the other game I had written down, so I'm glad you picked that one. All right, let's go to the player prop market here. What do you got for me this week in a player prop?
I think this is the week we see the Jonathan Taylor show. It's part of the reason I'm so high on the Colts. Zach Moss has been incredible, don't get me wrong, but Jonathan Taylor sitting with a line of 64.5 yards, rushing yards. I like the over on that in a spot I expect the Colts to be winning.
What was Taylor's number?
64.5 rushing yards.
That seems low.
Yep.
I was looking to see really quick if it was up on
that second half thing. I think has people thrown off, but I think you nailed it when you said they got behind and they saw an opportunity to rest him. First of all, and just use Moss as the pass blocker. That makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm fully expecting a huge workload for Taylor.
I had Terry McLaurin over 4.5 receiving or receptions this week. The targets are just way up right now for Terry McLaurin, and I really like this one. I think this one has a ton of upside. So, and like you're not necessarily looking for upside in the betting market, but like this seems like really good value. So we'll go with the value instead of upside here. Pick and play. What do you got for us on the pick 'em side of things this week?
Chris Olave at 60.5 receiving yards. I like more than 60.5 receiving yards back in the Dome against the awful Chicago Bears defense. Like he could hit this in 2 plays against it. Like this Bears defense gives up big plays. 60.5 is too low for an indoor game against a terrible defense.
Like this one a lot. Like that one a lot. I didn't even notice that one when I was looking at it earlier. I'm going to my boy, Mr. Adam Thielen, that is, over or more than 68.5 receiving yards this week. They're going to keep feeding the ball. I'm going to keep doing this. He's so involved when you're like, all right, he only has 2 catches. What's going on? And then like the next 2 drives, he's at like 6 or 7 catches. You're like, yeah, it's like he's gone over this number now in 5 straight games. I'm going to keep riding it. I think it's too low. So we're going to fire up the old-fashioned prize picks here, and Chris Olave more than 60.5, Thielen more than 68.5. I'm going to add in my McLaurin more than 4.5 receiving yards and just go for the 5X. Let's get a little 3 for 3 5X here. That's it. Keith, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
So it is an ugly slate overall, but there are a couple spots that I have pretty high conviction on. The Jonathan Taylor thing is certainly one. I think a big decision is going to be what to do with Dallas Philly. And I know you're contemplating the fade. Maybe I end up on the fade by
ownership,
Sunday.
Man.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's a 10-game slate, so ownership's more condensed than we're used to. Like the 13-game slate gets pretty spread out, but when there's only 10 games, it really condenses. Hopefully a lot of that goes to Pollard, and that's the way that I can get off it, is if the passing game is just not quite as high. But love the Jonathan Taylor spot. Love the spot for Alvin Kamara. Love the Saints just in general. So a couple of good spots, I think, even though it's an ugly slate overall.
Yeah, 5 players early week, Wednesday, projected ownership for more than 10% in that Dallas Philly game. Like, so there are ways to get different in that game. So like, even if you're like not like, if you're lukewarm on like that game, like I kind of am, and I'm not like necessarily lukewarm on the game in general. I think I like the Dallas side a lot, the passing side. So like I'll be overweight on like CD, and I'll be overweight on like Ferguson and Brandon Cooks, and like way underweight, maybe even fade Tony Pollard. But it's just, I think just taking Devontae over AJ Brown is a good way to get different on the Philadelphia side, and hoping that like they shut down AJ Brown a little bit. So I'm with you. I like the slate more than I did an hour and a half ago. That's for sure. I really, 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 really like that Colts Panthers game. If that game does anything, and that Tampa Bay game does anything, and if Chicago can keep up with New Orleans, there's so many ways this slate has ceiling. So it'd be fun. Hope everyone enjoyed. If you haven't already, subscribe to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page. We're trying to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. We're at like 815. Help us out. If you haven't already, I know there's a ton of people. There's way more than 1,000 people listening to this show. Go over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, help us out. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us over there on the YouTube chat. We'll be back next week, week 10. I haven't even looked at the slate. I don't know how many games, but week 10 we'll be back. Hope everyone has a fantastic week 9. We'll see you then.